think so, yeah.
All right. Call to order the work session. And our first thing on the agenda is to look at who's here this evening. And let me say to all of you, I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm happy to be back in a seat again. I haven't liked being unemployed, so I'm looking forward to working with all of you. We have one council member absent this evening, and that is Councilman Cavalier. And we will be addressing his resignation during the regular meeting. Everybody satisfied with that?
Yep.
Okay, and the items for discussion this evening is the draft review of the expenditure estimates, and we have our city manager, John Fishback, and Terry Canada, our budget and research manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Tonight we will make a brief presentation on the budget. Terry will provide an update for you as to where we are. We're making good progress in getting towards a balanced budget, and we will be presenting that to you, I forget the date, but in a couple of weeks. And we will move forward from there. Tonight we have Terry Canada, our budget manager, and Ken Kennedy, our capital improvements manager, to talk to you about the different capital improvement projects that we have next year, which aren't a whole lot. But with that, I'll just turn it over to Terry.
Okay, I'm waiting for the overhead. Thank you, Eddie. Eddie.
It'll be up. Eddie, are you back there?
No, wrong Eddie.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you very much.
She probably thought she was getting an announcement.
There we go. Yeah, Eddie's in the building, yes.
Sorry, Eddie.
Once again, it's a pleasure to be in front of you. This is one of a series of many work sessions that we have scheduled for the City Council to review the budget and keep you informed on the financial status of the city. So with that, I just want to go over the calendar again, real brief. We are in the last session of March. There has been a number of things that have happened in the last couple of weeks. We had a public budget forum, if you will, that was well attended by staff, and a number of council people and candidates were there. And we also had, I'm going to guess, about maybe a half a dozen interested citizens that attended. So with that, this marks the end of March and the work sessions. We'll move ahead into April. We'll probably get into more of the detail. And
Terry, I'm sorry. How many citizens did we have?
I'm going to say half a dozen, maybe
Six people. And how long was that advertised for? And where did we
Well, it was
place
advertised for a couple months.
A couple months.
In the
Okay, so
Focus.
in the newspapers. Did we
The
have it?
newspapers, the In Focus, and then we talked about it frequently at the workshops.
And so out of that result came 6 people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we have a number of, I think there's 2 scheduled work sessions in April. Again, we'll get probably more in the details of what's making up the budget. I'm going to put the information out tonight. It's mainly for your consideration, just to kind of get you aware of what is being discussed at the staff level and kind of the progress in the base budget, as well as balancing out the ongoing, mostly in the general fund we'll talk about. Again, same thing in May. We do have slots for a work session before the preliminary adoption, tentative adoption, which takes place the 23rd, and then we are looking to final adoption in June and property tax setting in July. Wanted to just briefly update you on the economy. Not much has changed. We are seeing, as of the reports from January from JBLC, we are seeing some positive indicators here. As you can see, a couple of the consumer indicators are up. Also at the state level, consumer confidence index was up in January. As far as the local ones go, Maricopa County did report a 17% increase in new housing foreclosures being listed. And as far as, I kind of wanted to tie that into the Goodyear housing starts for this year, we did estimate, let me say over 500, and with the revised estimate as of half a year, we're back at about 466 housing starts. That would be through the end of the fiscal year, which represents a decrease of about 24% from the prior fiscal year. It's probably a lot of that might be attributed to the incentive that was offered for first-time home buyers and purchase of housing.
We did get our report. So with 3 days left in the month, we've done 52 homes this month. compared to 50 last year, so it's holding its own.
Will you consider retail to be a blip?
Retail sales tax?
Yeah.
I don't know. I consider that consideration that it's going to be ongoing.
There was a headline in the paper saying that retail was really up. And I hope.
I think that was a blip partly because the new autos were so heavily represented in those
They lean
figures.
on that. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, more
But-
people are buying autos than anything right now, so that has to tell you something.
Yeah.
You know?
Moving ahead to the general fund revenues for this year, we are anticipating, I think all along we've been estimating about $1 million over. And Dick, to your point, we are looking at retail sales remaining strong. It is the first year that some of the revenues have not actually dipped. And so state shared is right on. Like I said, non-construction sales tax remains strong. We are estimating that
Can
to
I
be up.
interrupt there? Can I interrupt, John? Is there any way that on that sales tax that, maybe I'm missing it, that we show without the increase that we voted on and the increase?
Certainly we can.
Could we do that?
I
So
think.
It's about $4+ million for
Okay,
annual amount
Could we
of that
start showing
rate.
that
Sure.
on the paperwork?
We can, we'll show the base, 2% base and then the 0.5%.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Like I was saying, that does remain strong. State shared is coming in pretty close to what we estimated. And again, that is from the state. It's comprised of 3 different state share sales tax, urban revenue sharing, which is income tax, and then also the auto lieu. Development or construction sales tax is right on. Development related is a little bit slow, but not as bad as we've seen in the prior years. So I guess another indicator that perhaps we're at the bottom or, climbing out of the recession. Primary property tax is estimated to be right on, and as well as the other general fund, which makes up, most of that is court fees. There's almost $700,000-800,000 in court fees. It includes all license fees, franchise fees, fire, the Litchfield agreement, and $500,000 reimbursement to general fund for CFD. On the other side of the equation here, general fund expenditures, we have met with the departments and we're looking at estimates for year end. Again, these are preliminary. We will have third quarter reports back probably mid-April, and we'll probably be coming back with some updated estimates here. Again, we're looking at some savings in each of the categories, nothing too substantial. With the budget trim, over the last couple of years, we're expecting that these numbers will be closer, the budget, to the estimates.
Terry, my calculations, that gives you about $1.8 million one-time monies that can be used for various one-time projects, if these hold true?
It will be brought back and help to balance out the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, one-time money to help you with either the funded depreciation account, some of the other infrastructure needs you need, because you have, looks like revenue up by 1, savings by about 0.8, so it's about 1.8 million. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and according to the policy, that will be the direction. You're always, once a budget manager, always a budget
I know.
person.
Doesn't change
Yeah, so
anything.
pretty good with
That's
that.
why I like him sitting next to me.
Thank you.
You're sitting on the desk.
So this far in the budget process, like I said, the last couple of weeks, we've been very busy meeting with the departments, looking at the base budgets. We did have a list of critical needs, if you will, or budget items that were just for consideration. A lot of the departments were able to move their appropriation around and kind of absorb and squeeze in a number of the smaller dollar needs that they had for increased costs. We will be bringing back, I think I have a list a little bit later in the presentation about the items that were not being able to be absorbed. We're also finalizing the revenue projections. We have, again, we have the Christmas results from the sales tax, which is always a big one. We also have the information on the state shared revenue that were being finalized, including we did get a bump from the census counts, which is good. And then working with all the departments on the smaller revenues, such as community development, recreation services, and we'll be bringing that back. I think it's April 11th. With that, we'll put the budget together. Again, like Joe was saying, review ongoing revenues and expenses, balance that out, and then present a draft budget based on what we have. further into the process, we'll look at initiatives and, again, items that are either one-time or ongoing that potentially couldn't be funded with the base revenues that we have, so they'd be up for your consideration of whether you wanted to use one-time or partially fund, and then how to balance those resources with the priorities. And then moving ahead, again, like I said, formally to May and June, we present a balanced budget. These are some of the ongoing increases that we're up for. I think we call them critical needs. Some of them are already known, maybe not a critical need, but known, like the first one for the radio cost. That was part of the CIP program. We have had that in the forecast all along. Next one, health insurance, no surprise there. We do just see an annual increase there. We're putting numbers together, I guess, looking at the variables and coming up with a proposal on that. We did make our fleet rates whole over the year. I think that went into effect in December. What we've been doing the last couple of years is up for budget consideration. We were balancing that out, and you would see it on the list of considerations as far as just cash funding and making that whole. This time we pass those out to the customers, which are the departments, so you will see an increase in some of the departments. I think it's primarily public safety that just couldn't absorb it. They couldn't afford it just because it's a primary cost of what they do. It's one of the largest costs outside of labor. There's a couple requests for part-time labor that get further detailed. Then fire services, we're not able to absorb the increased coverage for Sonoran Valley, so we're looking at putting additional resources there in the budget, and then some special projects and council initiatives.
Excuse me. On the Sonoran Valley, on that one, we've talked with the council a little bit about that. Basically, we've looked at the options. Sonoran, Maricopa has said, we don't want to serve you anymore. So we're faced with the option of A, putting a four-man crew back down there, which is $1.3 million. Right now we're paying Maricopa $73,000 in that ballpark. One of the other options is to put a two-man truck down there that will serve emergency medical services. They cannot fight fires, but Maricopa, because of our assistance, got into the mutual aid program this past year, so they will have to respond to any fire. And as you know, as I've been reporting to you monthly, we've averaged less than one incident a month, one fire per month. So our recommendation to you is going to be that we put a two-man truck down there, and then the men and women will go down. They will stay down there for a day or two. I forget what the schedule will be. That will cost us approximately $230,000 additional dollars over and above what we're paying right now. And so that's what we're taking into calculations as we prepare the budget.
So total 300 then.
Basically, yes.
So what would be the response time for the fire? Do they have an average?
For the response time for the fire, I believe, has been running in the neighborhood of 20, 25 minutes.
And so that wouldn't change at all?
No.
And John, those calls, are those for actual fires or just the fire crew being called out for other?
There were, I don't remember these numbers specifically, there were a couple fires in the mobile homes, but most of them are like brush fires or something minor like that.
Could we do something like, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No.
Tell me to, could we do something like a fire safety program where we would go into the homes and say have our fire crew check the homes out and tell the residents where they could make the house safer?
Absolutely. That would be something very friendly that we could do with
Yeah,
that.
so that maybe
It
that
also
would
gives
show
the-
them that we care enough, because I know
It
they're
also
going
gives
to.
the department something to do while they're done.
Yeah, and so that we could have a list of safety issues with them and help them along on correcting them.
Yeah. Many of the people down there won't want us in their homes, but we can offer it.
But if we offer it, then we're just handing the olive branch out, and if they don't want to take it, but I think it would, if they're listening tonight, I hope they would consider something like that.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
If we don't respond to a fire call in an appropriate amount of minutes, are we going to be held liable? Could we be held liable? For
I don't believe so,
omission?
Rourke. Do you
Omission?
want to answer that?
Well, if you're providing a service, then certainly it's certainly some expectation you'll provide an adequate level of service, but there's also qualified immunities that attach based upon affirmative actions by council. So you can make a decision as a council about what level of service you're going to provide, and most of the time the courts will grant you a qualified
But
immunity.
we're relying on another department to respond to our problem. And, if they're lax in making the call, does that make us liable? Could we become liable from an omission standpoint?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Sorry, not Mr. Mayor. I have to strike that.
No, it's
Am I
okay.
the first one that's done
It
that?
doesn't bother me at all. So if it slips out, it's okay.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I would say council needs to make your policy decision based upon what level of service you feel is appropriate for the area, and then we can deal with the liability later. I don't think the failure to, or the decision not to put a four-man crew down there is going to necessarily weigh in later on the liability decision.
Response time is not a law.
No.
It's a
I mean,
goal.
you
It's
could
a goal
have-
for fire departments.
Exactly. And you could have a fire crew on another call, and another call come in and you
That
not
could
respond.
happen.
So that's all weighed, and there are qualified immunities established in the law that protect cities.
And in rural areas, I mean, you don't know when a fire department's going to be able to respond. I mean, they call in to a fire district, and they might show up an hour later.
Are there any uses of volunteer fire departments in Arizona, or?
Some in Arizona, yes, but volunteer fire departments
Too
take
rural?
manpower,
Too rural for that
Yeah.
there too.
yes.
Okay.
Just a quick question on a follow-up. On the, you're saying Maricopa County does not want to continue the service, but if there's a fire,
Not Maricopa County, the city of Maricopa.
City of Maricopa, excuse me, does not want to continue with the service, but if there's a fire, they're going to have to go out there anyway, right?
That's correct.
Is there a reason? I mean, it seems maybe in their interest, they're going to be there anyway if there's a fire, because of mutual aid. Why is it, am I missing something?
I honestly don't know. I mean,
Okay.
that's decisions that they have to make, and
Okay.
But if you look at it realistically, that if you only had one fire, so Maricopa, the city of Maricopa says, oh, okay, we have 4 firefighters sitting there at Mobile. We've
well,
had
they weren't
one-
sitting there, though,
Oh, they
because
weren't
that's,
sitting there. All right, thank
they've been
you.
sitting at their home
Okay,
station
okay.
or in training in Maricopa. That's why the response time has been so long.
Okay, all right.
Well, it would appear to me that $75,000 is good insurance policy for the city of
It has been.
Maricopa.
Right.
Oh, it certainly has been good from the city of Goodyear's standpoint. I mean, when we were able to negotiate that at the time that Montage went bankrupt, we were paying $1.3 million for our firefighters, and we were able to move the men and women up here and cut our overtime significantly, and meanwhile pay Maricopa, the city of Maricopa, $73,000. So everybody came out a winner in that particular situation. But the city of Maricopa has advised us that they gave us their 6 months notice, which was required by our contract, that they are no longer interested in serving.
Without reason.
They didn't, no.
Okay.
Okay. Too bad.
And like I was saying, we will have a couple more work sessions. These are the ongoing increases we know that are going to be added to the base budget as services will continue year after year. And so in attempts to balance the budget, we will try and incorporate these with available ongoing revenues to match the ongoing expenditures.
Excuse me, before you change slides, under council initiatives, for example, we will be talking to you about a business advocate. We will be talking to you about different ways to address the business community. The mayor and I have been working on some different proposals, and so all of those are planned in future discussions. We've also talked about a skeleton for a retreat, advance, that will be in, it's after the election, so I think it's in June sometime, late June. Before you take a vacation, however, we will have a retreat in advance, and we will talk about any things that are on your mind. We will talk about the campaign, what you heard that you may want us to follow up on, and things like that. So all of those opportunities, and have you set some goals and objectives for the community and for yourselves over the next few years. So.
Just real quick on the increase rates for the fleet services, does that have any relationship to, on our replacement schedule? I mean, that's been pushed back a couple of years.
This is just maintenance, but I'll address that in a minute, Joe.
Okay.
We good? And then I just wanted, again, most of this is just kind of to provoke thought, and we'll have plenty of time for discussion in the upcoming work sessions. We'll also be able to tie dollars to this and let you know where it either has been absorbed and fit in the budget and balanced out, or where we couldn't do that. A couple of things that have been brought forward are for one-time use that are not ongoing, but that we're either know they're on the horizon or we're experiencing, are some projects with economic development. I could think a good example is the current one would be the Suntech. We have some job credits out there. Paul also has a list of other agreements. We just want to make sure that we have those obligations outlined and that we have the funding available should the projects come forward, and we have to have those payouts. And then risk management, there are some claims that are being discussed or potential right now, and we have some, pending liability. So we want to also make sure that we have that funded in the event that those come to fruition. Budget considerations, again, these were more probably the critical needs that went out to the departments, and I think it was kind of presented to, let John know what's keeping you up at night. A number of these are the deferred maintenance, Joe, that you were talking about, that we have not been able to fund due to constraints over the last couple years. So some of that is street maintenance, right-of-way landscape. There is a proposal for that. Equipment replacement includes not only fleet but also IT and building up some reserves there, and then compensation and benefits. And again, we'll have further discussion on these. Department directors will be able to answer more of your questions in detail for this, and we can, again, put some dollars to the plans. Missing the CIP slides. Eddie, can you bring that back so I can look and see?
Should be at the end.
Yeah, they're not. I'm not going to be able to do this with the keyboard. Can you just start from the beginning? Thank you. Pardon me for a minute here. I'm just going to go through the slides because we have the presentation for the CIP. We just have 3 slides we want to talk about. There we go. Okay, so now I briefly want to talk about the 5-year plan for the CIP, which would be fiscal year 12 through 16. Can't see on the bottom of it, but the total plan is representing $36 million. It's considerably smaller than it has been in the past. The majority of projects are funded through, I think a lot of it is MAG and grants for streets. You'll see that's the purple on the bar. And there's a better picture of the whole plan by type and then again by year. We also have a handout that Ken will be happy to answer any questions on. This lists the projects, if you will, on the left by type. It's more in detail. It tells you the funding level and then again the year that it's in by detailed project.
You said this is grants. Are these grants paying for it? Do we know which years or?
We do, and it's most of that funding is through MAG.
I'm not sure what you were pointing at. The 200,000 there, is that the?
I was just wondering which ones of these, I was pointing to that, are funded by grants? All of them? Or? I can't.
I'm not getting those.
My eyes are very hard for me to read. Only one of them says MAG.
Joe, where did you get that?
Yeah, that's not going to tell you the funding source. It's just going to tell you kind of a summary and project budgets.
Okay.
But
Do you know
There's-
how much
there's-
out of the $20 million is grant money?
for next year, out of grant, the MAG money is about $900,000 out of the $6 million that we have. 3.8 is for streets, and of that, 900,000 is MAG money.
And then out of the 20, do you know what percentage out of the 20 it are?
All the way out there, I'm not positive on that. And also on the streets, the other big number is the 303 right-of-way payment. That's $2 million
Each year.
each year for the next 2, 12 and 13.
and then it's over with. Why don't you review that just quickly, the water, wastewater, and we have time, so just the amounts in that, those various years in each category, Ken.
I'll refer you to this worksheet then while he's talking about that, because the slides are mainly summary, 5-year and then 1 year.
Did you say the sources were attached to this, or?
They're not attached to this. This is just project budgets. It doesn't give you funding sources.
Does not have funding sources.
But I think we do have slides up here, a pie chart and also a bar chart that shows you funding sources, how much grant money, and maybe, Terry, if you flip to the next one.
I guess the key question I see that. I guess the key question I have is, I guess there's still some spending things out there right now with the impact fees and some legislation, and so we don't know where that is right now. But it looks like there are some impact fees that you have in the budget
Well,
that's
so,
funding these, that are taking these out.
We don't anticipate any, that I'm aware of,
Okay.
any changes in the existing impact fees in hand. I think it's mostly prospective, the changes that have been recommended. I know that we, being the League of Cities, and everybody is working very diligently with the governor's staff and everybody else to kill that legislation. But the way the impact fees are progressing through the legislature, they in effect will eliminate impact fees if they vote the way the Senate has voted by one vote. They voted to basically eliminate them.
Yeah, and I guess my question is, if we have a 5-year CIP, say in next year's CIP, some of that money is impact fee related, which we haven't gotten yet, then possibly if you start it, you may not have the money if that changes to finish it. So
That is correct.
I guess we're just going to be aware of that potential possibility. If that happens at the legislature, you don't want to have a project somewhere in the middle that all of a sudden you don't have any funding for it.
But we don't undertake projects on a impact fee paid projects in advance. I mean, so we have to have the impact fees in hand
Okay.
before we undertake them. For example, the Goodyear Operations Center that we're currently planning, that you've authorized for building a phase 1 with the communication center.
Okay.
Those impact fees are in hand in the bank.
Okay. So again, the policy is we won't start a project that's impact fee driven unless it's in the bank.
No, that's
Okay,
correct.
that's perfect. Okay, thank you.
Did we want to go through this summary? Did you want to go kind of down it and get some of the projects?
We have
and
time.
Discuss
Sure,
about that?
sure. Just tell us what page you're going to start on.
Okay, we'll start
first
on
one?
the summary,
Okay.
first page,
All right.
in fiscal years 11-12. First project is $1.2 million for the Public Works Corporate Yard Phase 2, and that's including a wash rack, fuel site, and a storage facility. The storage facility we wanted to build to offset. Right now, we're paying about $30,000 a year for storage facilities, so this would eliminate that, and we could store our needs in this project here. Park projects, there's a drainage project that's in historic Goodyear, a CDBG grant that I think it takes stormwater from La Jolla over to the big storm drain on Litchfield Road, which has been a problem for years and years. I lived on La Jolla for a while. It got that close to being flooded, so that would be a good for that neighborhood. Loma Linda Park design, that project is actually $206,000 for the design. We're only showing $119,000 because that's new money. The rest of it will be funded by carryover from savings from a project this year, which will couple up with that project to get that project done.
And this is the one that we've been working with St. John Vianney.
Right.
And we've moved it forward in the capital project because they have actually committed some significant funds to it.
I know they have,
And so
yeah.
we were able to scrape and stuff and come up with our balance to match it. And so we thought it was important to move forward for the community. So.
So we see here 2 areas in which historical Goodyear is being improved. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Then down into the traffic signal systems, most of those projects, and you see there's kind of locations from and to, and that's installing fiber and conduit to tie these traffic signals together so we can start to time them, or if there's some type of emergency, we can, turn the lights green, all going south, if that's the way we need to exit. And then there's one that says traffic control system conduit, and that has to do with the 303. So we're putting in some
Okay.
conduits there so we can use those in the future to control those lights. Traffic signals, 2 per year. We've got $208,000 allocated there with not really anything in mind at this point, but something will surely come up in the next year. And then the 303 payment we discussed, that's $2 million. So our non-utility total is about $5 million. And down into the utility projects, water collection lines, again, those are just kind of generic, so if something pops up and somebody moves into town, we can supply water, do the off-site infrastructure needs. And the cap M1 charges, that's payments for our groundwater rights. Water reclamation projects, there's a couple of small projects there, system expansion, I think that's some pipes and tanks. Next one, I-10-303 landscape sleeves. We're going to sleeve under the road, so at future date we can run reclaimed water to irrigate with. Should be a good savings for us because we pay for that. And that's basically it for next year. So the total is about $6 million.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thanks.
Okay, so with that, just to recap, the fiscal year 12 plan CIP right now is a little more than $6 million. This is the what makes up the funding here. You can see the large payment for general fund is that the right of way? The $2 million general fund?
Yeah, $2 million to that, and then $73,000 to one other smaller project we needed funding.
And this is just a summary by type of project. Again, you can see streets being the largest projects with activity. And then this was just a highlight of the projects that Ken just went over.
I'm sorry, can you go back to your chart of the funding again? Thank you. Oh, that one.
Mm-hmm.
You have a question, Joanne?
No, we don't have it, and I didn't get to look at it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's in here.
It's
Oh, it's in
here.
here. Oh, I was okay. That's why I was like, wait a minute. Oh, let's look at this. Okay.
You gotta
Thank
turn the page.
Okay.
If I could point out page 12 of this,
Okay.
just for the moment, because you'll look down there and you'll see art, for example. And I know that's been a concern of many during the campaign and during the issue of what is the importance of art. You'll see that we have nothing budgeted in the next 2 years for art projects. We do have carryover funds that we're still working with, and we have Diane Kripe, who is our paid staff person, that is still in the budget. Those are the only art things that we're doing, though. So there is no emphasis on the arts. There's no emphasis on different projects that are going to be producing money for the arts. So it's been a very scaled-down project for the past few years.
And primarily that program was paid out of the bonding, and we're really done with the bond sales, I think, as of this year. The other thing to note, based on what John just said too, in the process right now, Ken's going through with the project managers, engineering departments, and we're doing a calculation, if you will, of project carryover from this current fiscal year that will add to the CIP as carryover. So when the final budget's adopted, I would expect that the carryover number would be larger than the current year of funding available. Do you have a guess, Jenna, what it is?
You know, last year it was about $25 million. I'd be kind of afraid to, it could be well short of that, but, yeah, I'd be afraid to guess.
So
at this
just
point.
kind of to, make you aware and inform that if you see, as we move forward in the budget process and you see the CIP, the current year will always be the $6 million is made up of this funding. But once we add in, we have to have total appropriation to spend the money. We'll add in the carryover. It should, that number will increase dramatically. And I think that was it with the slides for the CIP. Again, back to the budget calendar where we're at. We're moving ahead into April. I think the work session, talking more detail on the revenues and expenditures and allowing some discussion on the initiatives one-time and increases that you saw today will come up on the 11th. And then we also have some room to have another work session if necessary, 2 more before we propose the tentative budget adoption. So with that, I'll answer any questions you may have about budget or where we're at.
Go ahead, Jim.
I've got a couple things. When I saw the budget, I kind of listed, I guess, top 10. I'm sure I'll have more down the road, but just that, I think some of them you covered tonight. Some of them I'm hoping that we'll see some coverage as we kind of move forward in the budget process. And I'll give you a copy of this when I'm done. But the first one was a budget option that includes no structural deficit. Also, no construction sales tax used for operations, which I assume is part of it if there is no structural deficit. The rainy day fund, I think I talked about this before, but if we went from 33% to 25%, okay, since if we don't use any construction sales tax for one-time money, what kind of money would that free up for one-time type of things? Critical needs list you talked about tonight, but one thing I didn't see on there, maybe I missed it, was technology. I think we had talked about it with the city manager about technology, what your critical needs
We've
are.
been able to meet those needs for this next year
Okay.
out of our current operating budgets. But there are some, you'll notice, $1 million+ in fiscal year 13.
But I think if we're going to move forward, technology is going to help us become more efficient and effective. I know we talked about the food tax from 2.5 to 2.25. I assume that'll
Yes.
be in there as well. I know you, I guess, but the
Can I-
status.
Can I interrupt there? Since I wasn't a part of that, I've sat in the audience and listened to all of you. There was little discussion on the sales tax increase. And you all were looking at, we're going to reduce the grocery tax and we're not concentrating on the other. I'd like to see both. I want to see, we did make a commitment. I think we have one more year on the commitment. But I still think even we have one more year, we need to be looking at it and combining it with whatever decisions you all make on a tax cut, if it's through groceries or whatever. But I don't want us to not have that figure in mind of the consequences that will happen the next year when we bring it up to vote, as
Thank
we
you, 'cause-
agreed. Okay?
I'm sorry.
No.
We are considering both of those items, and we will show in the projections on the dashboard that we use the ramping down of the general sales tax,
Okay.
the 0.5%, as well as the groceries next year.
Okay, thank you.
Any May I?
Yes, of course you may.
Any consideration given to the restaurant tax at all?
We've taken a look at it, but there, from the staff standpoint, there is not a recommendation to do anything with that. That would basically have to come from the council discussion if you wanted to, because the the restaurant tax has been there for 20 years, and our restaurant sales taxes are going up significantly month after month after
That's the reason I'm
month.
saying we ought to really take a serious look at this.
Well, we certainly can, but I would argue that that shows that it is not having a dramatic
Negative
effect or a drag on the sales of restaurants.
And of course, the thing that I look at is that we all struggled with revenue. Isn't that what, we didn't have enough revenue coming in. Isn't that the reason we raised those? And I think that we have to remember, there's no crystal ball here. The economy is moving slowly. There's nothing that says it's going to stabilize, or it's going to, so I think we have to keep all those facts in mind when we talk about, I would love to cut all the taxes for people,
Well-
but I just think we have to be practical on this, and that's why I think it's very important that you show us the different scenarios that everybody's
And I
talking
think that's
about.
what we've been talking about,
Yeah.
the different increments that, if you start with groceries,
Yeah.
and then the next year you look at maybe it's either retail, or it's restaurant, or it's, you incrementally go to the different areas that are affected.
Then can we establish a work session with the tax issues in mind so that we can maybe program these over the next 2, 3, 4 years?
Didn't we just do that
Well,
a
that's
couple
what
weeks ago? Yeah.
Hey, you did, probably, yeah, you did, it was a discussion, but I think that type of discussion can be taken, a second discussion on it. I think it's people.
Two people too.
I think,
Council.
Certainly, we can do that. And so we'll make sure to include that as part of the budget discussion. So.
I still want the food tax going going down.
That's what you
I
really want,
didn't
Joanne.
change. I really didn't change my mind yet.
You know, Joanne,
All right, we'll
you know,
discuss it.
I'm not against you. The first year I got on council, I went to Steve Cleveland on that one. So it's not a new idea, and it's been around for a while, so.
Well, and the other thing that, you as a council are going to have to deal with is, for example, the fire letter that we sent out, that'll cost us $60,000 if we start talking about the fire fees, and which I think is going to come up later tonight. Also, I forget which other fee.
Are you talking about business fees?
Yes. And there's another item, which I'm sorry I blank out on, but that'll cost us X thousands of dollars. And, all of those are easy and fine to do, but 60,000 here, 60,000 there.
Well, that's why
adds
we
up to
need
real money.
to see it on a chart. We need to see it, the repercussions of it, or the advantages of it.
Yeah,
whatever.
if we could
Put it out, because it's really hard in here without seeing it up there. And so we just need, we need a workbook, like,
Well,
we
and
need
that's
to work
why,
through this.
and that's why we had the workshop on the budget, on the dashboard,
Right.
and we're going to do that again.
Good.
And so, and that,
Sometimes, John, they say to remember something, you have to say it 3 times. Well,
Absolutely.
same way with this group. Sometimes we maybe need to work on it just repeat it, and so that we fully understand it. Because there's nothing worse than voting on something and then 6 months later you say, was that the right decision? You'd rather not that happen.
Certainly.
If I could ask Joe, because he was asking about a budget without a structural deficit. So you'd like to see a budget that,
An option, yes.
I would like to see that as well. So I think we can have that discussion on, because I see the rainy day fund as I understand, and what we're doing, it's like our little piggy bank here. Is it the time that we need to dip into our piggy bank, or are there other things that we don't have to do? So I agree with you. I just want to make sure that's what you were saying. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, what I'm getting at is if we're not using construction sales tax for ongoing, I think personally the 35% in the rainy day fund is high. I think you can get by with 25% as the rainy day fund, because the revenue that fluctuates the greatest is the construction sales tax. So if you can take that out of the equation from your operational standpoint, then I think you can live with 33 to 25%. That's why one of the questions I was asking of the manager is, what does that impact? I don't know if it's 1 million, I don't know if it's 3 million, but the point is I don't think you're actually dipping into it if you get away from using construction sales tax. I think you can use 25%, because that's 3 months worth of operating versus 4 months worth of operating, in its place. But it's got to be, in my view, in part with not using construction sales taxes. If you're using any part of your construction sales tax for operations, then really you want the higher buffer. So again, that's why I mentioned both of those together. So, but I think we're on the same
I
page.
think that work session that we had on the showing across the board, we were high. I mean, we were very conservative, and that's nice to be conservative, but it's time to use some of that and change that a little bit. So.
And again, to follow up what I was talking about earlier, as a result, and again, you covered some of this, the status of the equipment replacement fund, because there for a while we had dropped down, and I know we had pushed some of that equipment out for a while. And again, my biggest concern as we kind of move forward is, I read an article in the paper the other day. City of Phoenix has 600, I think it was, police vacancies that's going to come due at some point down the road. And I also know that it costs us a lot of money to train an officer, whether it's fire or policeman. I hear numbers like 60, 70, 80,000 to have a fully certified police officer or a firefighter. And my concern is not immediately, but that could be an issue for us when Phoenix starts hiring again. They may start picking off our best and our brightest. So at some point, when we look at our benefits program, which I know you'll cover, and even the merit program, even if it's a one-time issue, not something that adds to the base, it's a merit that is one-time plus, and I'm not talking details, but I think you know where I'm coming from. It's something that we probably need to have that discussion, and again, we throw all this out, and I don't know if it's all affordable or not affordable, but you kind of put it all on the table and see what you can do and what you can't do. But I think that's important, because in my view, what we won't want to have happen is all of a sudden the problem has existed where now we start losing a mass exodus of our finest and our brightest, and then we say, well, we got to fix it, but by that time, it's too late.
Well, and that's exactly the position the city was in, like, say, 10 years ago, and we played catch-up for a lot of years, and now just in the past 3 years, we've been
Yeah, when
Not
I came
losing ground,
on
but
board,
we've been
our
stagnant.
police department, it was in need when I came on board. The other thing is you worry about is we have to keep in mind the shopping center. When the regional shopping center gets, that's going to increase the need. And so that's all about the same time.
It's going to increase the need dramatically, and all we have with the West Corps is an agreement, I think, to produce 2 officers.
So that's another
And
thing.
we will have to obviously produce a lot more officers than 2, because shopping centers, those of you who have come to Comstat, shopping areas, shopping centers are crime drivers. I mean, crime is going to go up in and around the shopping center.
Do you know, have any idea how many police we have on the waiting list?
I don't believe we have any on the waiting list right now. Chief?
We are recruiting for 3 vacancies, fill those, but there's no waiting.
No.
We haven't created a waiting list for a couple of years now. There hasn't been a need to.
Do we look for lateral hires, or do we look for?
Oh, we love lateral hires, because then you don't have training.
Training costs.
Yeah, we do. And we've gotten some tremendous lateral hires over the past few years, from the sheriff and from other offices, police departments.
Also, I know we had talked a while back, there was a savings program, and I don't know where the status is right now, where employees, frontline individuals were looking for ways to make us more cost-effective and efficient. Maybe that can be kind of interwoven in the budget process to see how successful we've been coming up with ways to improve our effectiveness and of operations, that type of thing. So, again, I'll give you this when I go, but my concern is always looking, don't wait till the problem hits us and then try to fix it, because then it's always more expensive than if we try to stay ahead of the issue. So, and that's what I do, whether it's in the classroom or with anything I do. So, try to stay ahead of the problem before it hits us. So,
Thank you, John.
Absolutely.
that's it for me.
Any other?
If I could just ask before you adjourn this work session, does this table work out? I like it, because
Good idea.
Well, let's ask the peanut galleries that said, how do you like it? Is it better?
They look pretty exciting.
Good, well, that's important. Can you hear better and see better and know reactions a little bit better? I see some shaking heads, yeah.
what we wanted was those of us who sat the other way, and Joanne frequently sat on this other side, you have your back to the audience, and this way we have a much better, I think,
I thought it was very
opportunity
good.
for exchange. So,
All
good,
right.
thank you.
Okay, we're on information items, and we'll take care of these at the regular meeting and manager summary and all of that. So I'm going to call this meeting at adjourned, and we'll re-adjourn at 6 p.m. All right?
Thank you.